What are you doing in a neighborhood like this?
I came down to save your life.
I fear to stay and hate to leave. You excite me.
There are dice, there's a dame, and there's a man with a sword cane who controls them both. Gilda wasn't just a film noir. It was a powder keg wrapped in satin, where every glance was a weapon and every line dripped with something the censors couldn't quite touch. But behind the smoldering looks and that iconic glove peel, nothing was simple. The star hated her image. The love scene was rewritten in secret, and one musical number, it nearly destroyed Rita Hayworth's career before it even peaked. These are 20 weird facts about Gilda. And the bonus? A dress so dangerous, the studio locked it away after filming. Shuffle the deck. This game plays for keeps. Number 1. Rita Hayworth didn't want to be Gilda. When Columbia Pictures handed her the script, she pushed back hard. She'd spent years being molded into Hollywood's love goddess. Hair dyed, eyebrows raised, her natural brunette buried under layers of studio reinvention. And here was another role asking her to smolder, seduce, and suffer in high heels. She told Harry Cohn, the studio boss, that she wanted to play real women, not fantasies. Cohn didn't care. He saw dollar signs in her face and wouldn't budge. So Hayworth showed up to set angry, resentful, feeling trapped in a role she never asked for. But something strange happened once the cameras rolled. She stopped fighting it and started using it. Every ounce of frustration, every moment of feeling objectified, she poured it into Gilda. The bitterness, the sharpness, the way she could cut a man down with just a look. That wasn't acting. That was survival. And the performance that made her a legend, it was born from the role she never wanted to play. Number 2. Glenn Ford was cast as Johnny Farrell, the cynical drifter caught between loyalty and desire, but he almost walked away before filming even began. Ford had just returned from World War II, serving in the Marines, and he wasn't sure he wanted to dive back into Hollywood. He felt disconnected from the artifice, the glamour, the pretending. When he read the script, he saw a man tangled in obsession and betrayal, and it felt too dark, too close to something he couldn't quite name. Director Charles Vidor convinced him to stay with one line. He said, "This isn't about being a hero, it's about being human." Ford thought about it for days, pacing hotel rooms, wrestling with whether he still had it in him to perform. Finally, he agreed, but he made one demand. He wouldn't rehearse the scenes with Rita Hayworth beforehand. He wanted the tension to be real, raw, unpredictable. Vidor thought it was reckless. Hayworth thought it was disrespectful. But when they finally stood across from each other on set, sparks flew. Not the romantic kind, the dangerous kind. And that electric, uncomfortable chemistry, it became the heartbeat of the film. Number 3.
With Glenn Ford.
That's what I told Val, and that's what you're gonna tell him.
George McCready, who played the menacing Balin Munson, had a secret weapon. That jagged scar running down his cheek wasn't makeup. It was real. McCready had been in a car accident years before, and instead of hiding the scar with Hollywood tricks, he kept it. Casting directors loved it. It made him look dangerous without trying, sinister without needing dialogue. But McCready hated it. Off-screen, he was soft-spoken, gentle, nothing like the villains he played. He once said the scar typecast him into darkness, that people on the street would cross to the other side when they saw him. During filming, the crew noticed something odd. Whenever McCready delivered his coldest lines, threatening Johnny or controlling Gilda, his hands would shake slightly. At first, they thought it was nerves, but later, McCready admitted the truth. He was thinking about his own powerlessness, the accident that marked him, the roles he could never escape. So when Balin Munson gripped that sword cane and smiled like a man who owned the world, there was something underneath, a sadness, a trap he couldn't break free from. The scar wasn't just a look, it was a prison, and McCready wore it every single day. Number 4.
Excuse me while you're making up your mind.
The iconic black gown Gilda wears during the Put the Blame on Mame number wasn't chosen by the costume designer, it was chosen by the censors. Originally, Jean-Louis designed a dress that was even more daring, cut lower, tighter, with sheer panels that left almost nothing to the imagination. The production code office took one look at the sketches and sent them back with a firm no. Too provocative, too suggestive, too likely to cause moral panic in Middle America. So, Lewis went back to the drawing board, furious. He didn't want to play it safe, but he also knew the scene needed to be unforgettable. The solution was brilliant. He created a dress that covered more skin but moved like liquid. Every step Rita took, the fabric clung and shifted, revealing the shape of her body without actually showing anything. It was somehow more seductive than nudity. When the censors saw the final version, they approved it, barely. But they made Columbia promise the dress would never be worn in public, never shown in publicity stills without strict supervision. After filming wrapped, the studio locked the gown in a vault. For years, it sat in darkness, too dangerous to display. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't what you show, it's what you suggest. Number 5.
Put the blame on me, boy. Put the blame.
The glove scene almost didn't happen. Rita Hayworth's now legendary moment, slowly peeling off her long black glove while singing, wasn't in the original script. It was added at the last minute during rehearsals when choreographer Jack Cole noticed Rita fidgeting with her gloves between takes. He pulled director Charles Vidor aside and suggested they build it into the number. Vidor was skeptical. It seemed too simple, too subtle for a big musical moment. But Cole insisted. He told Vidor that the audience didn't need elaborate choreography. They needed intimacy. They needed to feel like Gilda was performing just for them. So they shot it. One take. Rita, a spotlight, and that glove. When the studio executives watched the dailies, the room went silent. Then someone whispered, "That's the whole movie right there." They were right. That single gesture, lasting barely 10 seconds, became one of the most iconic images in cinema history. And here's the strange part. Rita never thought it was special. Years later, she said she was just nervous, trying to do something with her hands, and they turned her anxiety into legend. Sometimes the most memorable moments aren't planned. They're accidents caught on film and declared genius after the fact. Number 6. The relationship between Rita Hayworth and Glenn Ford off-screen was complicated, intense, and nothing like the movie suggested. They'd actually known each other for years before Gilda, having met when both were contract players struggling to break through. Back then, they were friends. Real friends. They'd grab lunch between auditions, complain about the studio system, dream about the roles they wanted to play. But something shifted during Gilda. The lines between performance and reality started to blur. Ford later admitted he fell in love with Hayworth during filming, not because of the scripted passion, but because of the moments in between. The way she'd laugh at a flubbed line, how she'd sit alone between takes, smoking, staring at nothing. He never told her. He was married. She was married to Orson Welles at the time, a union already crumbling under the weight of two massive egos and careers pulling in opposite directions. Years later, after both their marriages had ended in spectacular fashion, Ford and Hayworth tried to rekindle something. They dated briefly in the late 1940s, but it didn't work. The timing was wrong, they were different people. The magic they'd created on screen couldn't survive in the real world. Ford said the saddest part wasn't losing her. It was realizing that the version of her he loved only existed in Gilda, and once the camera stopped rolling, she was gone. Number 7. The famous line, "If I'd been a ranch, they would have named me the Bar Nothing," was almost cut from the film. When the production code office reviewed the script, they flagged it as sexually suggestive, implying Gilda's promiscuity in a way that violated decency standards. Columbia fought back. Harry Cohn argued the line was poetic, metaphorical, and frankly, most audiences wouldn't even understand the innuendo. The censors didn't buy it. They sent back notes demanding it be removed or rewritten. Cohn refused. He believed the line captured everything about Gilda in one sentence: her defiance, her pain, her refusal to apologize for who she was. So, he made a calculated gamble. He left the line in during test screenings without telling the censors. When audiences heard it, they didn't gasp or walk out. They laughed. Some applauded. The censors eventually gave in, but with conditions. The line could stay, but Rita had to deliver it with a smile, not with bitterness. They wanted it played as a joke, not a wound. Rita understood the assignment. When she delivered the line on camera, she smiled. But if you watch closely, the smile never reaches her eyes. There's something hollow there, something broken. And that's what makes the moment devastating. Because Gilda wasn't joking, she was telling the truth, and no one was listening. Number 8. Charles Vidor, the director, had a reputation for being cold, controlling, and emotionally distant. But during the filming of Gilda, something cracked. Crew members noticed he'd sit in his chair between takes, staring at Rita Hayworth with an expression they couldn't quite read. Fascination, obsession, maybe something darker. Rita felt it too. She later told friends that Vitor made her uncomfortable, that his direction felt less like guidance and more like possession. He'd give her line readings in a whisper, standing too close, his hand on her shoulder. During the filming of the final confrontation between Gilda and Johnny, Vitor stopped the scene mid-take and told the crew to leave. Just him, Rita, and Glenn Ford. He said he needed the actors to feel truly alone, truly vulnerable. What happened during those private sessions, no one knows for sure. Both actors stayed tight-lipped about it for decades. But Ford once hinted that Vitor pushed them to a place that felt less like acting and more like exposure, that the rawness in their performances came from real discomfort, real fear. When the film wrapped, Vitor moved on to his next project without looking back. No rap party, no goodbyes. He just disappeared. And Rita Hayworth never worked with him again. Some collaborations create art, others create scars. Gilda did both. Number 9. The casino where most of Gilda takes place wasn't a real location. It was built entirely on a soundstage at Columbia Pictures, and the studio spared no expense. The gambling tables were functional, the roulette wheel actually spun, and the chips were real clay. Set designer Steven Goosen wanted everything to feel authentic, even though he knew the camera would never capture most of the details. He believed the actors needed to feel like they were in a real space, that the environment would shape their performances in ways he couldn't predict. And he was right. Glenn Ford later said that walking into that casino set for the first time changed how he played Johnny. The opulence, the shadows, the way light caught on the polished wood, it made him feel like a small man in a big trap. But here's the strange part. After filming wrapped, the casino set wasn't dismantled. Columbia kept it standing for almost 2 years, using it for other films, other stories. It became one of the most photographed sets in Hollywood history. Actors would request tours, directors would study the lighting, and somewhere in all that reuse, the set stopped being just a set. It became haunted, not by ghosts, but by the memory of Gilda. Crew members swore they could still feel her presence, the way she'd move through that space, the danger she carried. Long after Rita Hayworth left, Gilda stayed behind, and maybe she never really left at all. Number 10. The film's most controversial moment wasn't the glove, it wasn't the dress, it was the slap. In the climactic scene, Johnny Farrell strikes Gilda across the face, hard. It's brutal, shocking, and it played very differently in 1946 than it does today. Test audiences reacted with audible gasps. Some women walked out. Critics debated whether the scene went too far, whether it glorified violence against women or exposed the ugliness of toxic masculinity. Columbia panicked. They considered cutting it, but Hayworth fought to keep it in. She argued that the slap wasn't about violence. It was about power, control, and two people destroying each other because they didn't know how to love. She told the studio that removing it would sanitize the truth of who these characters were. Gilda wasn't a victim, she was a survivor, and that scene showed her breaking point before her resurrection. The studio reluctantly agreed, but they added a line of dialogue afterward, trying to soften the blow. It didn't work. The slap remained devastating, and decades later, it's still the most debated moment in the film, because Gilda refused to look away from the darkness. It showed damaged people doing damaged things, and sometimes the most honest cinema isn't comfortable, it's just true. Number 11. The soundtrack was supposed to feature original songs written specifically for Rita Hayworth's voice, but at the last minute, Columbia decided to play it safe and went with standards that audiences already knew. Put the Blame on Mame was hastily adapted from an old vaudeville number, and Amado Mio was pulled from the studio's music library. Rita was furious. She'd spent weeks working with vocal coaches, preparing for original material that would showcase her range. Instead, she got recycled songs that anyone could have sung. But here's what the studio didn't count on. Rita didn't just sing those songs, she owned them. She took those familiar melodies and twisted them into something darker, more personal. When she performed Put the Blame on Mame, it wasn't just a musical number. It was a weapon. Every note carried accusation, defiance, rage. The music department later admitted they had made a mistake. The original songs they'd commissioned were safe, forgettable, designed to please radio stations and record buyers. But what Rita did with those old standards, she turned them into something dangerous, something that couldn't be played on the radio without making people uncomfortable. And in doing so, she proved that great performances aren't about the material you're given. They're about what you do with it. Rita took someone else's leftovers and created cinema history. No original songs necessary. Number 12. Glenn Ford had a drinking problem during production. Not the falling down drunk kind that shuts down sets, but the quiet, steady kind that slowly erodes everything. He'd show up on time, hit his marks, deliver his lines with precision, but between takes, he'd disappear to his dressing room with a bottle. The crew knew, Rita knew, Vidor knew, but in 1946 Hollywood, that's just how things worked. You didn't talk about it, you worked around it. The strange part is how it affected his performance. Ford played Johnny Farrell as a man barely holding it together, someone haunted by choices he couldn't take back, and that wasn't entirely acting. In scenes where Johnny spirals into jealousy and self-destruction, Ford was channeling something real, his own unraveling, his own inability to control the demons chasing him. Years later, after Ford got sober, he watched Gilda again and barely recognized himself. He said it was like watching a ghost, someone he used to be, but couldn't fully remember. The darkness in his eyes, the way his hands trembled in certain close-ups, that wasn't technique. That was a man fighting a battle the camera accidentally captured. And maybe that's why his performance still feels so raw, so uncomfortably real. Because Johnny Farrell wasn't just a character, he was a confession Ford didn't know he was making. Number 13. There was a scene cut from the final film that would have changed everything. In the original script, Gilda had a moment alone in her bedroom where she breaks down completely. No performance, no armor, just a woman sobbing into her pillow, utterly destroyed by the men who claimed to love her. They filmed it. Rita gave everything to it. The crew fell silent watching her. But when the studio executives saw it, they demanded it be cut. They said it made Gilda too sympathetic, too human. They wanted her to remain an enigma, a fantasy, someone the audience could project their desires onto without having to confront her pain. Vidor fought to keep it in. He argued that the scene was the emotional core of the entire film, that without it, Gilda was just a plot device instead of a person. The studio didn't care. They wanted a femme fatale, not a wounded woman. So the scene was cut and reportedly destroyed. No prints survive, no stills exist. All that remains are the memories of the people who were there, and they all say the same thing. It was the best acting Rita Hayworth ever did, the most honest, the most heartbreaking, and no one will ever see it. Because Hollywood didn't want honesty, they wanted the fantasy, and they were willing to destroy the truth to keep it. Number 14. Orson Welles visited the set exactly once during production, and it was a disaster. He and Rita were still married at the time, though barely. Their relationship had become a war zone of egos, careers, and resentments. Welles was in the middle of filming another project, but he showed up unannounced one afternoon, walking onto the soundstage like he owned it. Rita was in the middle of a scene with Glenn Ford. The cameras were rolling, and Welles just stood there, watching, his presence impossible to ignore. Vidor called cut. The tension in the room was suffocating. Welles didn't say anything. He just stared at Rita, then at Ford, then back at Rita. She refused to make eye contact. After what felt like an eternity, Welles turned and walked out. The crew stood frozen, unsure what had just happened. Rita lit a cigarette with shaking hands and said they should do another take, but something had shifted. For the rest of that day, every scene between Rita and Glenn carried an extra layer of intensity. Not the scripted kind, the real kind, because Welles hadn't just visited the set. He'd reminded everyone that Gilda wasn't just a movie. It was Rita's escape, her chance to be someone else, somewhere else, away from the man who'd turned their marriage into a prison. And for a few hours every day in front of those cameras, she was free, until reality walked through the door. Number 15. The famous hair flip wasn't choreographed. During the filming of Gilda's entrance, when she appears at the top of the stairs and throws her head back, Rita did it spontaneously. It wasn't in the script. Vidor hadn't asked for it. Rita just felt the moment and moved. The camera was already rolling. Glenn Ford was already in position. And when Rita tossed her hair back with that defiant energy, Ford's reaction was genuine. He looked stunned, mesmerized, exactly the way Johnny Farrell was supposed to feel. Vidor didn't yell cut, he let the moment breathe. And when they watched the playback, everyone in the room knew they'd captured something special, lightning in a bottle. But here's the tragic part. That hair flip became one of the most iconic gestures in cinema history. It was copied, parodied, referenced in countless films. And Rita grew to hate it. She said it reduced her to a gesture, a single moment that overshadowed everything else she'd done. Directors would ask her to do it in other films. Photographers would request it at photo shoots. Strangers would ask her to do the hair flip in restaurants, at parties, on the street. It followed her everywhere. And what started as a spontaneous expression of Gilda's confidence became a cage Rita could never escape. One moment of freedom turned into a lifetime of repetition. And maybe that's the cruelest trick Hollywood ever played on her. Number 16. The film's ending was rewritten multiple times, and no one could agree on how it should end. The original script had Gilda walking away alone, choosing herself over both men, disappearing into the Buenos Aires night to start a new life. It was bold, feminist, uncompromising, and the production code office absolutely hated it. They demanded a more traditional ending, where Gilda ends up with Johnny, where love conquers all, where the woman doesn't get to just leave. Columbia rewrote it, then rewrote it again, and again. They shot 3 different endings in one version. Gilda and Johnny reconcile on a boat leaving Argentina. In another, Balin Munson survives and Gilda goes back to him. In the final version, the one that made it into theaters, Gilda and Johnny walk off together after Balin's death, suggesting a happy ending that feels anything but happy. Because if you watch closely, Rita plays that final scene with complete exhaustion. Gilda doesn't look happy, she looks defeated, like a woman who's given up fighting and accepted her fate. Some critics said the ending ruined the film. Others said it was perfect in its ambiguity. But Rita knew the truth. The ending wasn't happy or sad. It was just surrender. And maybe that's the most honest thing about Gilda. Not every woman gets to walk away. Sometimes you just survive. Number 17. The on-set tensions between Rita Hayworth and the costume department became legendary. Jean-Louis, the designer, was a perfectionist who wanted every garment to fit like a second skin. But Rita had different ideas. She'd gained a few pounds before production started, normal weight fluctuation. But Louis treated it like a crisis. He had her costumes taken in so tight she could barely breathe, let alone move naturally. Rita complained. Louis ignored her. She complained again. He told her to lose weight. The breaking point came during a fitting for the black gown. Rita tried it on and couldn't sit down. She couldn't raise her arms. She could barely walk. She told Louis she wouldn't wear it. He told her she didn't have a choice. So, Rita did something radical. She went directly to Harry Cohn and said either the costumes get adjusted or she walks off the picture. Cohn, terrified of losing his star and derailing the entire production, sided with Rita. Louis was furious. He adjusted the gowns, but he made sure everyone knew he'd been undermined. For the rest of the shoot, the costume department treated Rita with icy professionalism. No warmth, no collaboration, just measurements and fittings and hostile silence. And years later, when people praised the costumes in Gilda, Rita would just smile and say nothing, because no one wanted to hear about the pain. They just wanted to see the beauty. Number 18. There's a persistent rumor that Rita Hayworth and Glenn Ford had an affair during filming. They denied it. Their spouses denied it. The studio denied it. But the whispers never stopped. Crew members would later swear they saw them sneaking into dressing rooms together. Late-night script sessions that went too long. Looks that lasted too long. The truth is probably more complicated than a simple yes or no, because what they shared on screen was so intense, so electric, that the line between performance and reality became impossible to define. Did they cross it physically? Maybe, maybe not. But emotionally, absolutely. Ford admitted years later that he couldn't separate his feelings for Rita from his feelings for Gilda, that the woman he fell in love with was neither and both at once. Rita said something similar in one of her last interviews. She said Gilda wasn't her, but Gilda was also the only version of herself she ever really liked. And when she was with Glenn, performing those scenes of love and betrayal, she got to be that version. So, did they have an affair? Depends on how you define it. But the connection was real, and it scared both of them, because they knew it couldn't exist outside that soundstage, and trying to capture it anywhere else would destroy it. Some love affairs happen in bedrooms, others happen between action and cut, and those might be the most powerful kind. Number 19. When Gilda premiered in March 1946, Rita Hayworth didn't attend. She claimed illness, but the truth was more complicated. She couldn't face watching herself, couldn't face the version of her the studio had created, and was about to unleash on the world. She knew what was coming, the posters with her face plastered across every city, the inevitable comparisons, the reduction of everything she was to a single image, a single performance, and she was right. Almost overnight, Rita Hayworth became Gilda. She couldn't go anywhere without someone quoting lines at her, asking her to pose like Gilda, wanting her to be that character forever. At first, she tried to play along. She'd smile, she'd give them what they wanted, but slowly, it hollowed her out. Because Gilda wasn't real. Gilda was a construction, a fantasy, someone Rita could pretend to be for a few hours a day and then wash off with cold cream and go home. But now, Gilda had escaped, and people didn't want Rita anymore. They wanted the fantasy. Years later, she said the saddest words ever spoken by a movie star. Men go to bed with Gilda, but they wake up with me. And in that sentence was everything. The loneliness, the anger, the realization that she'd created something so powerful it destroyed her. The performance that made her a legend became the prison she could never escape. And Rita Hayworth spent the rest of her life trying to murder Gilda, knowing she never could. Number 20. The film was banned in several countries, not for violence or language, but for the suggestion of a ménage à trois. Censors in Ireland, Spain, and several South American countries flagged the relationship between Gilda, Johnny, and Balin as morally corrupt and sexually deviant. They weren't entirely wrong. If you watch Gilda with fresh eyes, the subtext is impossible to ignore. Balin rescues Johnny from a dark alley and brings him into his world. They develop an intensely close relationship that goes beyond friendship. Then Gilda arrives and destroys that bond, creating a triangle where all three people are bound together by desire, jealousy, and possession that goes beyond traditional romance. The film never makes it explicit. It couldn't, but it's there in every frame. The way Balin looks at Johnny, the way Johnny can't choose between loyalty to Balin and desire for Gilda. The way Gilda understands exactly what's happening and uses it to her advantage. Some film scholars argue Gilda is one of the earliest mainstream films to explore bisexuality and queer desire, all while flying under the radar of 1940s censorship. Others say that's reading too much into it, but the countries that banned the film, they saw it. They understood what was really being suggested, and they couldn't allow it. So Gilda was locked away, forbidden, too dangerous for audiences to see. And maybe that's the ultimate proof of its power. The film was so subversive, so challenging to conventional morality, that entire nations feared it. Not bad for a movie about a nightclub singer. Bonus fact. After filming Wrapped, the black gown from Put the Blame on Mame disappeared. For decades, no one knew where it was. Some said the studio destroyed it, afraid of its power. Others claimed Rita took it home and burned it herself, wanting to erase every trace of Gilda from her life. The truth is stranger. In the 1990s, the dress resurfaced at an estate sale in Beverly Hills. Hidden in a trunk, wrapped in yellowed tissue paper, was the most iconic costume in film history. It had been purchased by a private collector who'd kept it secret for years. When it was finally authenticated and put up for auction, it sold for over $300,000. But here's the eerie part. The buyer was anonymous, and the dress vanished again. No museum displays it. No archive holds it. It's out there somewhere, locked away in someone's private collection, never to be seen again. And maybe that's fitting, because like Gilda herself, the dress was too dangerous to exist in public, too loaded with meaning, desire, and the ghosts of everyone who created it. Some things are meant to be seen only once, and then they disappear into legend, where they belong. The dress is gone, but Gilda, she never left. She's still there on screen, in that moment, peeling off that glove. Forever dangerous, forever alive, forever untouchable.